welcome you to Component 3, Developmental Stages of Childhood. We're going to talk about how the developmental stages relate to divorce in terms of what you need to do to manage your child so they have the best outcome at specific developmental stages. Many of you have children that are in different developmental stages, so you will need to pay attention to all of these slides. And certainly, as your children age, they will be moving through the other stages. So I hope you find this component interesting and informative. So let's first talk about infancy, the attachment phase. So this is birth to 1.5 years. In this stage, an infant develops a sense of trust and attachment for his or her caregivers. However, the trust and basic attachment of this stage are threatened by disruptions in the relationship with primary caregivers. If a caregiver were to disappear from the infant's daily life, which is very common during and after the divorce process, then the infant's sense of trust may be significantly damaged. There should be little psychosocial impact on the child as long as the child's basic needs are being met. What parents can do for their children. Okay, keep normal routines and schedules. Reassure your infant through physical affection and loving words. You're reassuring that you're there for them. Keep children's favorite toys, blankets, or stuffed animals close. So this is if you are transferring the child to your spouse, you want to transfer them with their favorite toys, blankets, and stuffed animals to help them with security and attachment. And you want to gradually introduce older infants to new adults and avoid arguing in front of your infant. They can be affected by negative emotions they hear. There have been some really interesting studies looking at attachment where you have parents arguing, either even non-verbally, parents just stressed at one another, and they put a child in between them, an infant between them, and you can see the child being in distress because of his parents' distress. So parents don't have to necessarily argue verbally for children to pick up on things. So, here we have a lot of questions about, how is this infant going to do spending some time with dad if the child is with mom most of the time? So, and how are overnights going to affect the attachment with mom? Well, we got to rely on a lot of daycare type studies to know that most kids do okay spending time away from the main attachment figure, but also to know that children can equally be attached to both parents. And I've said this before in a prior component, we no longer believe in a hierarchy of attachments. So a child doesn't need to have a specific attachment with one person in order to have other attachments, but they can have multiple attachments at the same time. Toddler, the autonomy phase, ages 1.5 to 3 years. In this stage, toddlers attempt to challenge the quality of their attachment with new motor and verbal skills. With these skills, toddlers start to desire independence while still requiring the attachment of their caregiver. This balance of autonomy and dependability make it very difficult for toddlers who are separated from a parent. This separation can increase a toddler's anxiety and result in negative behaviors such as frequent tantrums. Also, toddlers may feel as though they are going to be abandoned or not taken care of. What parents can do for their children in this toddler phase? Allow them to do small tasks on their own with supervision in order to develop their sense of autonomy. Provide physical and verbal reassurances of your love. Show understanding of the child's distress and recognize that old behaviors like thumb sucking may reappear and then will disappear. And some of the skills they learned will disappear and then reappear, like toilet training as they're going through this process. Talk with other caregivers and professionals about how to support your child. Again, during this phase, kids that have a healthy attachment have better autonomy. So when they feel that secure and close to you and they feel loved, they will feel more self-confident and more independent. So again, make sure you're providing plenty of reassurance. Preschool age. So the phases of differentiation versus power and influence. Or really together, differentiation and power and influence phase. So ages 3 to 5. In this stage, children attempt to create emotional separateness from their caregivers, especially with the parent of the same gender. The other parent serves as a support system for this difficult task. This explains why so many younger men become very protective of their mothers when their fathers leave the family. Also, at this age, children commonly engage in transductive reasoning. So transductive reasoning is a very concrete type of reasoning, meaning that if two things happen at the same time, they must be related. With this type of thinking and their drive for emotional separateness from their parents, children who experience their parents separating at this age will occasionally blame themselves. This can result in depression, lack of self-esteem, and difficulties with interpersonal skills. So a great example is this. Maybe a child gets a bad grade on a test, or they have a bad day actually in preschool or VPK. And the same day their parents are fighting and arguing. The child will then attach those two unrelated events to their parents getting divorced. And that's called transductive reasoning. So this is where we have to make sure we're giving lots of reassurance to our children that divorce has nothing to do with them. And really at any age they need to have this understanding. But it's this transductive reasoning that gets kids in trouble at this age. It's this very concrete reasoning. Preschool, differentiation, power, and influence continued. So what can parents do for their children? Repeatedly tell children that they are not responsible for the divorce. Reassure children of how their needs will be met and who will take care of them. So let them know that their life is still going to be the same. Everything's going to be okay. Somebody's going to pick you up from school, and you identify the person. Plan a schedule of time for children to spend with the other parent. Be supportive of the other parent's relationship. Be sensitive to the children's fears. Talk with them about their feelings. And read books together about children and divorce. And I have a list at the end of this component about books. Gently remind children that divorce is final and that their parents will not be getting back together again, because they will often have fantasies and want you guys back together. But you just got to let them know that we're moving on with our lives and everything's going to be okay. Mom's going to be happy and dad's going to be happy and they're going to be happy too. The next phase, school age, success versus inferiority phase. So this is 6 to 11. During this phase, children start developing a desire for competency. This means that as the child acquires success, they develop a higher sense of confidence and self-efficacy. And if they experience failure, they develop a sense of inferiority. The best way to create and maintain a caring relationship with your child during and after the divorce during this stage is to maintain normal interaction while pointing out the things that they've accomplished in order to build their confidence. It's typical of this age group to relate success and failure to performance in school. So it is very, very important to highlight achievements outside of the classroom, especially if they're not doing so well in the classroom. Adolescence, the identity phase. Age 12 to 18 years of age. So during this stage, teens are in a struggle to find their personal identity. As they make the transition to adulthood, they may feel unconfident and insecure, and as a result, they may take on many different roles and behaviors in order to fit into society. It is very important to provide constant support, reinforcement, and encouragement during this stage, especially during and after the divorce process. Teens may engage in self-destructive behaviors and substance abuse, have poor school performance, experience depression and anger, and worry about their own ability to maintain long-term relationships as adults. Again, this is a really difficult time for kids, teenagers, when parents get divorced, because they are trying to figure out who they are, and it's a very confusing time. and they don't know who to align with, and they seek their peers as their main support who are not always healthy. So it's important to stay involved with your children, with your teenagers, to know who their friends are, to know what they're doing, and to talk about their feelings. So tips for all age groups. For all age groups, avoid parental conflicts with children nearby. Encourage the communication of feelings, thoughts, fears, and emotions. Again, it's important to communicate with your kids as much as possible. Kids that talk about their feelings do better in the divorce process or dealing with any difficult time. Consistently spend quality time with the child. And again, it's not just quality. Maximize your time, spend quantity time as well. Communicate with your ex or your future ex as much as possible in order to establish a comfortable routine for your child. To make the child more comfortable, keep frequently used items, toothbrush, toys, pajamas at both parents' houses. You want them to feel like both places is their home. Do not talk bad about the other parent to your child, and do not use your child as a messenger. I repeat, do not use your child as a messenger. Signs that children may be experiencing increasing difficulty with divorce. So they engage in defiant or explosive behavior. Their school performance starts suffering. So they start having school problems, changes in peer relations, academic performance, or they start getting in trouble at school. Intense or excessive worrying. So they may start worrying about a little bit about everything and start having fears, frequent nightmares, phobias. They may start having eating problems. You'll start noticing them gaining weight or losing weight. Frequent illnesses or bodily complaints, so typically headaches, stomach aches, back aches. Regressive behavior, again, this is when maybe they start sucking their thumb again. Rigidity about everyday habits or patterns, so things have to be a certain way. They may be using alcohol or drugs. Suicidal behavior or thoughts. And even perfectionism. So parents sometimes think my kid is not having any problems with divorce. They have perfect grades or they're excelling so well in athletics. Well, this can be a sign that they're having anxiety or that they're having some trouble, and maybe this perfectionism is helping them cope, self-soothe, and escape. So it can be a sign that maybe they're having an issue. Let's talk about common feelings about divorce and that kids go through. And these are the same feelings that we went through the same phases that we went through during component 1 when we were talking about grief. And children experience these things too. So children of all ages grieve during and after separation, divorce, and remarriage in an attempt to adapt to change. So the first stage is denial. It occurs when children are feeling anxious about a major life transition. They may pretend to be unaffected or pretend the divorce never happened. Anger, the second phase. Children's anger is often expressed by acting out in school. Parents may notice increased fighting between peers and or siblings, and this anger may be directed at one or both parents, or even at the self. Angry feelings are often a cover-up for deeply hidden sadness. Sadness, the next phase. Children may manifest feelings of sadness by unexplained periods of crying. Hyperactive behavior, fatigue, or withdrawal also suggests sadness at times. Fear. Children are often worried about their own safety and security. They are looking for reassurance about who will take care of them. Clinging behavior, reluctance to participate in activities, and being unwilling to communicate often suggests fear. And then when we start hitting guilt and self-blame, this is when kids may start bargaining. So that maybe it's going to be okay, and they start moving on. So children often feel guilty and blame themselves for their parents' divorce. As a result of this thinking, they may unconsciously seek out punishment or make attempts to reunite their parents. And this is when they're bargaining, trying to make it better. Maybe my parents could get back together. Maybe I could be okay if we have a separate life. So here we're moving toward acceptance. All right, so this is the last slide in this component. Divorce affects children's attitudes, behaviors, and how they react to certain situations. How children adjust to divorce depends upon the intensity and duration of conflict between the parents. Parents who have a well-functioning co-parenting plan can help children adjust to the change much faster and have fewer behavioral issues. So you guys are responsible for how well your children do with divorce. It's all based on the intensity and the duration of your conflict. And here I have a list of different books and different resources for you to look at that can help you manage your children depending upon the developmental age. So thank you very much, and look forward to seeing you in Component 3.